Well, good morning. Good morning. Hey, everybody. How are you? I know you're happy. I know, even though we're still in quarantine, Friday still feels good to me. How about you? Ring the bell of purpose on that one. Hi, I'm Lauren Michaels Harris, and somehow you've slipped up and found your way into the front room of Friday episode of Bathrobe Moments. I'm so glad you did. Wow, this week kind of went fast. You know how this quarantine conundrum, one week it'll seem like forever for me anyway. That time, gets through, and then some weeks, so I guess that's just like our regular, what used to be our normal, right? Kind of felt the same way. Friday, what do you have planned for the weekend? Oh, let me see. I think I'll stay at home. Anyway, got it. If you listen, if you don't laugh, you'll cry. What a week we've had here on Bathrobe Moments. Some really great guests, and today's guest is no exception. I want to remind you guys before I get too far away from it, to go back if you missed Wednesday's special. We had a 90-minute special entitled Forgotten Voices, the Youth of the Coronavirus Pandemic. And man, I've been getting calls and emails, and we're up to 3,000 views on that show organically. I have to add that one because some of you tricksters out there, you know how you are. Hey, I ain't hating. I'm just keeping it real. But about 3,000 organic views, which is great. And these kids, if you didn't get a chance to catch it, I highly recommend you either go to my YouTube channel, Loren Michaels Harris, or just scroll down at Bathrobe Moments, the Facebook page, and find that particular episode. It was the first time I've ever done a 90-minute special in the 4 years I've been doing the show, and it was the first time I had that many guests, 19 of the world's greatest kids, and they really tell it like it is. So get over and find out what these kids are thinking and how they're feeling during this trying time known as the coronavirus pandemic. So yeah, really proud of that one. Today we are, as always, live streaming everyone across the following platforms: Facebook, YouTube, Roku, Android, Apple TV, Periscope, and of course out in Phoenix, Arizona from our home base, which is E360 TV Live. I want to say hats off and thank you for a wonderful month again to my sponsor for this month, which is symposium.us. They are helping people, especially now, turn their conversation into currency. So if you don't know much about them or anything at all, I highly recommend you get over and download the app from Google Play, Google Play, and also the App Store. Yeah, drop that down into your device. Check it out. I have personally done over 20 some different things there, from masterminds, mini masterminds, master classes, and I've also live streamed two of my events, the Power of We Symposium and also the Next Impactor competition, through that platform. So get over and check them out. A lot of great opportunities there. You can turn your cell phone into a payphone. Right. Never thought you'd see those again, did you? Okay. Thank you, Symposium. We love you dearly. Troy Rokes and the crew over at symposium.us. So today's guest, I hope, you'd have thought I'd learned my lesson on Wednesday with the kids, all those names that I was like struggling. Woo! They got a kick out of it, but I was feeling kind of like public school education showing up again. My guest today, Jay, that's the easy part. The last name, I should have asked him. I'm going to go out on a limb and say, oh, look, if you take his letters off, he could be called JJ. I wonder if he's ever been called JJ. Jay Jawitz. Jay Jawitz. It almost sounds like I'm seeing thumbs up from the green room. J-A-J-A. How interesting that I just realized that. I like that. Okay, he resides in Cooper City, Florida. He has a brand called Team Freedom Coaching. And he invited me to a webinar, and I think I felt guilty because I was either doing something or previously committed and couldn't make it. But then I looked into what he's doing, and I was really impressed. So I was like, you know what? I need Jay on my show. So Jay is a transformational speaker. He's a conscious parent coach. We're going to talk about that today. And in August of 2001, he escaped from a hell called addiction. Been there, done that. He entered recovery, and immediately he began to transform his life. Within a couple of months, he had a breakthrough experience where he discovered his voice, he discovered God and his purpose all in one evening, while unwillingly, isn't that always the case, unwillingly, speaking in a jail as a volunteer. His spiritual awakening has called him to a fulfilled life of constant growth and service to others. His vision is that every human being gets to heal, transform, and awaken. I can't argue with that now. So let's get Jay in here and we'll get started. Hi, Jay. How are you?
I'm doing great.
Good. Welcome to Bathrobe Moment. So nice to get you here for the very first time. So where you're in? Let me see here. I have Cooper City, Florida. Where is that? What's the town nearest you that we would recognize?
I would say Hollywood, Florida.
Okay,
Hollywood. Yeah.
Hollywood. See, I always get Hollywood, Florida confused with Burt Reynolds in Jupiter, Florida. Now, Hollywood, Florida, what's their claim to fame? Why would we know Hollywood, Florida?
Actually, Hollywood can be called Holly Weird.
Oh, that's what they said about Hollywood out in LA. I used to live at that one. So are you near you? How far are you from Orlando?
I'm pretty far south. I'm actually closer to Fort Lauderdale. And
okay.
Yeah, I'm west of Fort Lauderdale. I'm a little bit north of Miami.
Oh, that's one of our stops. As soon as we're freed from the quarantine, we're going to go down to Key West and Miami and check that out. We haven't been there, so we decided we're going to do that. Okay, I'm just pulling up the broadcast on my phone so I can kind of watch over there. And welcome to all of you that are coming in. Good morning to you. Happy Friday, TGIF. We're here today with Jay. Jay, say your last name for me.
Jowitz. You got it right.
Jay Jowitz. Okay. What's the origin of that name?
It's a little bit of a mix. It is Polish, Austria-Hungary, Russian, and English.
Wow. And I thought
a lot of Eastern Europe. Yeah.
I just knew some German was in there. I guess
not. There actually is some German too. I forgot about that.
Is there? Okay.
Yep.
Wow. Well, you're just a plethora of history, and you've added to that history with your story, which we're going to get into. So, Jay, tell us a little bit about how you got started. I think you and I have some similar things in our past, and with the addiction thing and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
So but you grew up where? Let's start with.
I grew up in South Florida, and I had parents that I had no idea that my parents were messed up in some ways, and from the outside looking in, my childhood probably looked great. Came from a nice home, gave me nice things, and went to school. It's how I felt on the inside. I had some experiences very early on that shook up my life. And because of my parents not really addressing those things or addressing anything, I didn't know I was traumatized. I didn't know that it wasn't normal to go through life with total fear. I knew something was wrong with me because of how I felt about myself. So very simply, first memory is go ahead.
No, we've heard that orchestra tuning up before. So I'm assuming, correct me if I'm wrong, it sounds like you're talking about some type of abuse.
Well, it was not the abuse that most people.
Oh boy.
People in addiction from emotional abuse and neglect than anything else. As far as a lack of empathy, parents with a lack of empathy and a lack of me having a voice in my own life. My spirit was just crushed because of control and lack of empathy at a very early age, and my feelings were just dismissed. Everything that I went through were dismissed.
How many kids in your household?
It was me and my little brother, and he was the hero. They made him the hero.
So how are things with your parents today?
They're a lot better. I've accepted them for who they are. My relationship with my mother is definitely not the best, and just like I've learned that she does what she does, and she did what she did because that's all she knew, and that's what was given to her. Meaning, I wasn't listened to my whole life, and I understand my mother does not have the capacity to see outside herself past her beliefs. So I've learned to listen to her. Unfortunately, it's about politics and gossip and negativity, but I still give her that time, and I'll listen to it just to get her to listen to me for a minute so we could have that connection and to give her what she needs, which is somebody to listen to her.
Okay.
If that makes sense to you. And my dad, Yeah, my relationship with my dad is a lot better. And once again, it's acceptance. They are who they are, and they are not changing. I've created the context over and over again for them to change, but they're going to stay in their beliefs, and they stay stuck, and they are who they are, and I'm going to love them wherever they're at.
Wow. I find that really interesting, especially since you have this piece of your brand, which is the parenting piece.
Yeah.
So, and you did tell me you have a son that you began to be a father to, when he was what? How old? 9?
He was 9, and he's actually my stepson. So I was blessed when I married my wife that he became part of the package, and I had that ability to be the primary father. He was still with his father a couple of days a week, but to be the primary father, to create that space for him to develop along with my wife, it really is incredible experience that I'm grateful for, to have had that relationship with him. He's in the house now. He's asleep. He's 20 years old now, so he's grown up into a beautiful man.
Nice. Well, because a lot of people would think, well, wait a minute. If he doesn't have that great of a relationship with his parents, or did not, how can he be a parental coach?
Yeah.
But it's the experience that makes us the authority.
Yeah, and
it doesn't have to be one way or one shade. It's what happened to get you through to the other side, to a new revelation, a new mindset. So what is it you do inside this piece of your brand?
So I'm going to, before I mention that exactly, I think it's really critical, Loren, that I mention where I come from and why conscious parenting. Why the fact that I had unconscious parents, and when I started to transform my life, I discovered why I was the way that I was. And until I found a relationship with God and connected to my true self and been on this journey of recovery, and I go to 12-step meetings 3 to 4 days a week on average for over 18 years now. So when you add up all those days, all those meetings, all those men that I've mentored, all those life stories that I've listened to, the 5 years when I facilitated groups in drug rehab centers, which is not my thing anymore, and it really wasn't my thing then, but I've listened to so many stories, and I've learned where those limiting beliefs and how people have become lost from their authentic self and have been removed from the person that God intended them to be. So it's years and years of taking this passion to understanding people and with empathy. And that's the key word with conscious parenting, is empathy, to understand every human being has suffered and why people become what they become, instead of necessarily discovering who they are. So I've watched these patterns, and after a while, the limiting beliefs, the negative emotions, it's all the same. After a while, we can see, I've heard people tell their story, and it's like it's like after a while, you just see something happened at 3 years old. When we talked about abuse before, or something happened where a limiting belief was implanted, or you were labeled something, and that label is carried over. And until you transform your lives, you are operating under these limiting beliefs and this negativity and this false sense of self. So I've become passionate. I've watched too many parents lose children, and they were good parents, but at the same time, they ask themselves, where did I go wrong? Why is my child dead? Where did I go wrong as a parent? And the reality is I've made a commitment to helping parents become more conscious, to know that every single one of their actions affects the well-being of their future. And when I entered recovery, I became conscious to see how each one of my actions affects my future outcome. And I want to provide that for parents to really become aware of their communication and their connection, and to transform their own lives so their children can thrive and prosper, if that makes sense to you.
It does. It does. I just want to say, there are a lot of paths that lead to the same meadow.
Yeah.
I get it. I definitely get it, because I in my coaching program, one of the first things that we have to touch on is, and I even speak from the stage about it, about how for me, it was learning or relearning. I love the word, the prefix re, because we've had everything. We were given everything when we came here.
Yep.
That's just that's a fact. And it's just like this, like this pen, this marker, it came like this. But if I'm not careful, these two can get separated. And then if I want to keep this useful, because it's going to dry out if I don't keep the top on it, I need to remember it to this top.
Yeah.
Which means, and that's what we have to do many times, which takes a certain kind of courage. And I'm sure you can agree, to look over your shoulder and remember yourself to specific moments in your life that were turning points. Because I don't believe, and I'll be honest with you, Jay, when I was out there for 14 years in the heat of an addiction, it was what kept me there was my lack of understanding that there are no mistakes in this universe, that everything I was living was a miracle or a blessing that was in the making. It was in the process. And that's when I realized that it was a process. That's what propelled me forward, because I knew I was in the middle of something that was moving like a conveyor belt. I always think in my mind to Lucy and Ethel on I Love Lucy, when they at the chocolate factory, all those different chocolates coming down, and my conveyor belt got out of control, just like theirs. And so I'm glad we're talking about this. Welcome, everybody, to Friday's edition of Bathrobe Moments. Where were you? You guys were late today. I'm just kidding. It's Friday. I don't blame you. I was dragging booty, too. I hit the snooze button twice. Tomorrow, I don't have to get up at all. Oh, ringing the bell of purpose on that. Speaking of, excuse me 1 second, Jay. In case you guys all know about it, but just in case somebody on the replay or that watches this morning has never been here, this is the bell of purpose. Now, when you hear this is your opportunity to get behind what you've just heard. If our guest, myself, even you guys at home, put something on the screen that you just go, wow, can I get an amen up in here? I'm going to ring this bell of purpose. And this is how I want to show you just how easy it is to become a part of something greater than yourself. When you hear something, that is content, that's food, that's bread for your spirit. You automatically ought to want to give it away. So that means you can share this out. You can invite somebody. You can start a watch party. One of these days, when we go wherever to whatever's next, whatever your belief system is, I guarantee you, I picture it in my mind like this. I believe God will have me up on a high precipice, some kind of mountain or something, and say, look at all those orchards. Every one of those trees was something you didn't even realize you were planting. And that's what the bell of purpose is all about. Yeah. So when you hear it, plant a seed, invite somebody. Okay. So Jay, at what age were you when you started moving slowly into those deep, sticky waters known as addiction?
So addiction, I started actually late in addiction at 19. And,
wow.
I
was 27. So yeah.
Okay. So I started fairly late compared to most people I know, but addiction for me showed up in ways in my childhood. And real simply, the turning point of, I don't want to say the turning point, but real simply 2 years old, I was put on a roller coaster on my father's lap. He was scared to go on roller coasters, and that shook me up a little bit. I was put on a runaway pony when I was 5. That shook me up a little bit. But when I was 7, I was away at sleepaway camp. I was on a bus in the Pisgah National Forest, and the bus, we were on our way to an overnight. It dropped 80 feet off the side of a mountain and rolled over in the air. And it validated my fear. Now, when that accident happened, I was in the hospital and I got to speak to my mom. Now, I was physically untouched. I was mentally scarred and didn't know it. When I asked to come home back to South Florida to summer camp, my mother said, no, we paid for the whole 8 weeks. You don't get to come home. Where all the other kids that were in the accident and in comas and
that's what I was going to ask. Well, wait a minute, because I'm a visual. I'm a visual. So
yeah,
there were a bunch of kids on this bus.
The
bus goes off, careens off, flips and rolls, just like in the movie. No loss of life, I hope.
No loss of life, some serious injuries. Yep.
But some serious injuries, and you just went home.
I went to the hospital and then I went back to summer camp, and my mother didn't let me come home. She didn't acknowledge that I was in a traumatizing event. She acted like nothing happened.
But wait, the collective, didn't anybody say these kids should all, well, what year was this though?
This was
Yeah.
1979,
Yeah,
right?
they were
Yeah.
they weren't hearing all that back then
So
about,
here's you. So getting back to the question about the beginning of addiction, what happened was I was in an infirmary for 3 days and I didn't know anyone at summer camp. So here's where addiction started. I was only, what, 8 years old? There was this beautiful girl who I knew. She called me her camp girlfriend. You know, she was 15 years old. And she came and she paid attention to me. She brought me food. She let me kiss her on the cheek. She put me on her lap and she told me everything was going to be all right. Well, guess who was not doing that for this 8-year-old boy who was traumatized?
was that the
Mom.
counselor?
That was the counselor.
Okay.
So she became my first addiction. So having a girlfriend validating myself with the opposite sex for me was my first addiction. And you know, and then the addictions show up in healthy things like sports and video games and baseball cards and being outside and you know doing all sorts of healthy things. But I was finding ways to escape who I was and all that fear and all that anxiety, escaping the person that I didn't like.
So let's stop for a second in this intersection and just take a panoramic view around it.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of people, when they refer to addiction or they think about addiction, they think of it in a negative. So let's talk about what you were talking about with the girl, the camp counselor and stuff as an addiction. Can you explain that? Just taffy pull that one.
Yeah, I'm gonna taffy pull that for you. Really, my understanding of addiction, with most people make the use the word addiction and they automatically assume needles, drugs, and you know, and immediately think of junkies on the street. And the
Right.
reality is I never was a junkie on the street. I was a stockbroker who was a year before making loads of money. But the reality is addiction is a mechanism by which people escape their authentic self. It becomes a pattern in the brain where we are just obsessively and compulsively doing something to get that instant gratification, that instant fix where we are truly escaping who we are. Where it doesn't matter really what the mechanism, it doesn't have to be heroin, crack, or alcohol, or sugar, or sex, or anything. Addiction can show up in so many facets. It can be social media, it can be looking at our phone all day, it can be, and it all is, and these are all things, some of those things are healthy, normal things, that's our reality, that we have to look at phones and screens all day. But there is a point where we do have to look at, sometimes we have to be disremoved from that, so it's not an addiction, where we connect to ourselves. So I look at addiction as really any obsessive and compulsive pattern that brings unmanageability into your life.
Right.
So it's right. So it's a lot of those things are healthy. But go ahead.
Exactly. And I just want to mention here from my own experience that what I have learned, because my life turned completely around, flipped and flipped again, all in a positive way.
Yeah.
As soon as I made a conscious decision.
Yes.
As soon as I made a conscious decision, because now in retrospect, I look back to the me of then, and you know, I celebrate him. Because I have to celebrate every version of Loren. You know, before there was Loren, there was a boy named Larry, because I don't know if you saw my Goalcast, but I had 22 homes growing up in the foster system. And before I entered the system, I had been for 9 years a kid named Larry. And so I had to go back to every version of myself, because I had stitched the lips on each one of them shut. And that's when I was inside of the addiction world. I always envision it like a huge department store. And when I went in there, only things I could shop for were all the things I hated or disliked about myself. That was what was on all the shelves, hanging on all the garment racks. And no matter what I bought, it came packaged like a scarlet letter. So I would walk in and then I'd walk out with a scarlet letter sewn on me somewhere. And as I got older, what forced me into changing my mindset was that to me, it felt like those scarlet letters, where they were like Velcroed early in life. They were beginning to seep into my spirit like a tattoo. And I knew I got to get out of these. I need these off me now before they become permanent. And it was my authentic self, which is a combination of every single version of myself. Every one of the previous me's got me to the me you're looking at on the screen today. So I did say that because I know somebody out there You know, if you read biographies or autobiographies of the people that you admire the most, you will, in most cases, see that people, when they embrace the things that they hated about themselves or their circumstances the most, were the doors, were the bridges that got them over to a place they thought they could never be. And it's the
Yeah,
truth.
yeah. And I look, that's for me, that's where transformation began for me, to see that my whole addiction was the biggest blessing in my life, because it really, truly, I went to found God. I went to found my voice. I
Right,
went to found a new way to live. I went to
right.
found spiritual principles to live by. So my past was a blessing. And I start to have a deeper vision of, like, why are we here on earth? Not just like, why is Loren here or why is Jay here on earth? Like, that's in my spirit. But why are we here? Like,
And
why
can I,
are we here? Yeah.
exactly. And can
So,
I just say one thing, Jay, real quick? Because that's, again, somebody listening, or is it's going to listen, somebody's life is going to be changed today. I can feel it. I can feel it in my spirit. And I just want to say this, when Jay said, he found God, because a lot of people spend a lot of time, because we're told, if you seek, you'll find. But in my case, God found me. He wouldn't leave me alone. He just would not leave me alone. He'd show up. I'd be sky high, in the process, in the moment already, actually getting high. And he would say things to me and I'd be like, what are you doing in here? You're not supposed to be here. So I do want people to know it's a two-way feed, because neither one of us has ever left the other, whether we believe it or not.
yep.
Neither one of us has left the other. We've just decided to not acknowledge
Yeah.
what is. So just know that. Just
Yeah.
know that. That's why, Jay, I really encourage people, no matter if you really are looking for what is missing, all you have to do is look to see everything as an opportunity. All you have to do is have the courage to step inside of it, look at it from top to bottom, bottom to top, side to side, side to side, corner to corner, corner to corner. And in there, you're going to find that thing that is greater than you, that will make it all come together, and it will all begin to make sense. But you got to get in there. You can't peek your head in the door. You got to commit to positive and change and faith and all the things you can't see and touch. How do you feel about that?
I think you're right on. I was right. It was there the whole time. God was there the whole time. I just didn't see, and I didn't know I was supposed to be looking for it. And when I was in a context of people that showed me love, and look, I can't deny the miracle of God, because of the perfect people. I mean, the perfect people that God picked, and that my consciousness authored, that God picked to put in my life, those people that plant those seeds, that seed that's getting ready to germinate, that plants the seed. And then, you're looking, and other people believe, and they say, believe that I believe, right? But I kept looking, and when it showed up, and it was a knowing, and not just because I'm knowing because I'm told I have to believe,
Right.
but it was a knowing. It's in your heart. It's so strong. The whole world becomes yours. Like, meaning that, like, the whole world opens up to you. You tap into this loving force that we call God, and, like, your whole vision of the world starts to change. And you realize that you were not given that gift to just be you. You're given that gift because it's all about the giving. Like,
So,
yes.
no, I agree. Ringing the bell on that. So, Jay, let's circle back around to door number one that Carol Merrill is standing in front of. That's from, you're probably too young, but that's from Let's Make a Deal with Monty Hall. I love going down memory lane. So let's go to door number one. You're 19 years old. First of all, because at this point, we still don't know what's your drug of choice, or what was the addiction at 19.
Shooting Oxycontin at 29. So at 19, I started at 19 with alcohol and marijuana. And it led to Oxycontin. Yeah.
Oxycontin. Now, most people, when they hear Oxycontin, they think of the pill. And I see on television, on some of the shows, I see people crushing them up and snorting them, which I didn't even know they could do. And then you had prescriptions. Were you buying them on the black market?
No, I got involved with some guys in college when I was 20. I was always insecure about my weight. I got into some guys that introduced me to steroids for 2 months. And then they introduced me to another drug, which you put in a needle, which was like a morphine. And then, so I got addicted to opiates, and it became about pills. And a few years later, it became Oxycontin. And then it was about use. It wasn't about physical pain or anything like that. I chose, I made a choice, and I got them from a neighbor. And next thing you know is I had a $1,200 a day habit.
Wow.
I was shooting enough of them to kill an elephant. And
And shooting in and of itself. When you
yeah,
say that, now see, that's another thing too that cracks me up in a way that helps some people, when they go, oh, alcohol, you were an alcoholic. Oh, no problem. Everybody knows one.
yeah,
Even taking pills. Oh, okay, well, that's not so bad. But when you say shooting something,
yeah.
people are like, oh my God, they picture you sitting on the side of the freeway at the entrance or exit ramp with greasy hair, a sign that says hungry, please give me some change, and a syringe hanging out of your arm. But you didn't look like that, did you?
I looked pretty bad. I was,
Oh,
I'm probably 185. I was always skinny, but I was about 125 pounds, 6 foot tall, and my face was sunk in, and I had to wear long sleeves in August,
because weren't
and
you ever afraid, Jay? Like, did you share needles and that sort of thing back then?
I did a couple times in my early years of using needles, but for the
Ooh.
most part, at the end, I was by myself. I was isolated, locked up. I was living in a room in living at my parents' home, and they had no idea what was going on, or they choose to deny that something was going on. And I did go to work most of the time, traded stocks, and I ended up owing that firm 80,000, maxed out all my credit cards, started stealing. Look, I went from doing what I had to do to get and hurting whoever I had to hurt, and just doing what I had to do to not be sick and to just fix myself
Yeah.
until
So is the Oxycontin high thing, like when you try to kick it, is it like heroin where you're just so physically
it's
sick?
worse. It's
Really?
worse. Yeah,
I
it's
never heard.
worse. Yeah.
So, and I know I had a friend actually back when I lived in Phoenix. When I was in the military, I didn't live on base. Had bought a home by then, and I remember a couple came over for dinner, and the guy disappeared, and he was in finance too, incidentally, and disappeared. And we were like, "Where is he? Where is he?" And we got concerned. And then I opened up the closet door in the foyer, and he was in there, and he was shooting Oxycontins in up his big toenail. First of all,
Yeah.
I have a thing. They won't even let me donate blood at the Red Cross anymore because I drink up too much of the juice and eat all the cookies before they can even get near me. Because they were seriously, they said, "Can you find another way to maybe you can come and man the blood mobile, but you don't need to do it this way." So I have a thing about needles. But let's talk about what the mindset is when you start. Because did you try to hide it from people?
I hid it from most. I hid it from most. I was nodding out all the time, and most people probably knew something was wrong, but they didn't know. I always was a clean cut guy. You didn't see. Look. Most of my friends in recovery, most of them, a good chunk of them, have tattoos, right? So we have that. We have that stigmatism that comes along with addiction or judgments of people, and I've always been clean cut. So you see a guy who's going to an office, and you really don't notice if you're not noticing his eyes looking like they're, I'm gone, nodding all the time, right? So it's like when there's things like that, you don't know, like, why is this guy wearing long sleeves in August,
right,
all the time? Why does this guy looks a mess? I always was thin. Just certain people, only a person who used drugs might have actually noticed physically that I was using drugs.
So what do you think you were self-medicating? What were you pushing away?
It's just how I felt about myself, all that fear, all that trepidation, all those limiting beliefs, worthless, won't amount to anything, all that limiting beliefs, and how I felt about myself. Once I started using drugs to medicate my feelings and my emotions, after a while, you're creating this path of destruction, and what you're medicating it increases with time. So now I've caused people harm. Now I've done the wrong things. Now I'm a thief. I wasn't born and raised that way.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So
I remember that. I remember that.
So there's a lot that, like, everything gets worse in addiction. It's progressive. So if you're using, I don't care, whatever it is, if it's alcohol, whatever it is, over time, if you progressively use drugs, it's going to get worse. You're moving further from your spirit, whether you realize it or not. You're disconnected from yourself, and you're causing this. It's so self-centered. You're affecting others on the way, and then all that, you're like a tornado that's just gaining traction till it gets to the point it destroys it starts affecting everything that's around it. So it's progressive in nature. And I realized I'm grateful I got to the point where I surrendered and wanted help and kicked it home. I never went to a rehab.
Me either.
And that's where God started to, like, with the moment I said I need help, that's when God just said, all right, Jay's ready to go. Like Jay
Amen.
wants help.
I'm ringing the bell on that one. You know what I want to remind people of too, especially if someone out there is currently dealing with, or knows someone or loves someone who is currently dealing with an addiction. I want to say this to you. It may be hard to believe, hard to wrap your mind around while it's in real time, but this I know to be true. You know, if you are a believer and you have read the stories, the parables, and the miracles in the Bible, you will always see that they were executed on people who normal society, everyday people, wanted to pretend didn't exist. The lowly, the less than, the shunned, the forgotten. And so it doesn't surprise me at all that a lot of the greatest influencers in our world are people who have moved through and come through and lived through an addiction of some sort. Those horrible, because, don't you, sometimes I sit and I go, man, I wish there was a movie or something that tried to explain how it is for all types of different addictions, whether it's alcohol, pills, crack, marijuana, whatever it is, food, gambling. If you open the curtain to it and look in there, I don't think the rooms would be decorated so differently. You know what I'm saying?
No.
Right.
Yep.
Because it all feels the same, I believe, for all of us when we're in there. And it's all about convincing us that we're not worthy. And I think, Jay, that it's a spiritual warfare thing that tries to keep you from, it knows. I call it the Sarah Connor effect. Remember that movie with John?
No, I don't, but I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah.
Terminator.
Yep.
If we can't get him, let's go and get his mother, because if we get her, he can never be born. I feel like there is sometimes that's how it was. It was like, if we can shut Loren up, we don't have to worry. My Goldcast video has 14 million views. That touched 14 million people. So that means something probably knew before I did. If we can keep him and convince him that he is nothing, that he will never be, and he was this, that, and the other, we don't have to worry about his words, his message ever resonating in the hearts of not even one other person, let alone millions. How do you feel about something like that?
I real simply, it's just my belief. I believe every human being is made up of our mind and our spirit. And I believe that the mind, we can use the mind in a positive way, but I believe there's a monster that lives in my mind that's been there, but the only difference in me now and me where I was when I was in the depths of addiction, I listened to everything the monster said, and I did everything the monster told me to do. And the difference is now today is I know what the monster's voice sounds like. It's cunning, it's sneaky, it has to come in the back door. So look, and you're right on the money. Addiction is a spiritual disease. It's a disease of the spirit, because once we start removing the monster in the mind, we open ourselves awakening to the sunlight of the spirit and to God. It's just that opens the door. We have to remove that negative thinking and that monster. And once we understand that what we're battling is the monster in our mind, we open the door to be connected to God Almighty himself, or whatever, however because I know you have a lot of different viewers, however you interpret that. So like, I know for me that my relationship with God is the most important relationship that I have, bar none, right? So it's everything. And like, when I get addiction to, like, say, look, you take a back seat, because the monster in the mind still is going to talk. It's still going to talk.
It's going to.
Negative. Yeah.
Right. And it always tries to convince you that you're not enough, that you're less than. But here's the deal. We came here with everything we could ever need. Everything. I tell people all the time, Jay, we don't earn or learn our way into purpose. We came here with it already intact. We beat the greatest odds in the universe just from being born. 1 in 400 quadrillion. So if you beat the greatest odds before you drew a breath or even formed your first thought, you can check that off your bucket list. Once they slap you on the butt and you get here, now I believe it's not about beating the odds, because you've done that. It's about creating new ones for people to reach to. And that's a birthright. That's a birthright. That's a God-given birthright. And so I'm really encouraged. I want to talk about what you do on a day-to-day basis with this recovery coaching. So a recovery coach, when does a person come to you? Do they come to you right after they get out of the county jail? Do they come to you when they've had a bender? Do they come to you after they've had a year with a sponsor? How does that work?
So the good majority of people that I've mentored have been people as a sponsor and mentoring people in that way as a sponsor. As a recovery coach, are people that hire me that are not connecting to some form of recovery, some form of ongoing recovery.
So you're saying
everybody,
the meetings aren't working, the big book's not working.
It's their mindset of why meetings or why 12-step is not meeting. So you have to pick a strategy. And like, I'm not saying, look, my experience is with 12 steps, because it's everything I owe is 12 steps is what introduced me to God, right? So it's like everything that I owe in my life, really, all my transformation, all my change, I didn't learn it all there, but it was the core, it was my building block. It was my first home, right? So everyone has to choose a strategy. These are, look, I know you've studied some of the greats, and they're all going to say some of the same thing. And I'm not talking about addiction for a moment. One of the things you need to be successful in life, you need a team. You have to have a team. You have to have a strategy, right? You have to have a strategy. So it's like, these are some things that you need somebody that's going to hold you accountable to your mindset. And somebody has to choose a path. Somebody has to choose a path and be accountable to a path. So when it comes to recovery coaching, it's someone who their mindset is keeping them from 12 steps working. They have every story and every excuse why it won't work for them because they're different, right? So the ego has people, a lot of people don't want to get help because they're terminally unique. I'm different, or they're in denial.
Something I want to throw out there, because it was a catalyst in my transformation, and also not going back and forth. People do that with Christianity. What do they call it? Not relapse. It's relapse inside of the addiction world. But Christians, what do they call it? Like, they get saved and then they go back out and cheat or do whatever they weren't supposed to do, and they backslid. I backslid, which is a relapse. You know what I mean? But here's the deal. I really believe, Jay, in my opinion, and with the people I work with, this is one of the first things I tell them. Whatever you do, if you really, really, really want to be committed to it, and you really want to see it go all the way from the rooter to the tutor, from A to Z, then don't start by speaking it as I want to live like this, or I want to that. Want, and in my opinion, is ego-based. Need. See, when you say you need something, I need to live addiction-free. I need to stay alive. Not I want to, because when you say need, it comes with a plan. Oftentimes what we want is just, if we don't have a plan, it's just a wish. Yeah. If you don't have a plan. And think about babies. You know, you've been around babies. We're all sitting in the living room and a baby's in the nursery and you hear it cry. Nobody goes, who wants to go see what that baby wants? They'll say, let me go see what the baby needs. Because that's the original form of communicating, from a place of need. That baby's not screaming his head off just because. You know what I mean? Well, it could if you conditioned it to know that if you do that, I'm going to come pick you up. You know, but still, it wants to be picked up.
Yep.
I mean, it needs to be picked up because it needs to know you're there. But the thing is, a lot of people, and I love how you said that you got to have a support system, because we can do nothing alone. We cannot. We can do nothing alone. Even when it's just you still, thank God, you have God with you. That's a starter. And then you need to have a plan.
Yeah.
A plan. So how do you know, what's your vetting process, Jay, when people are sitting there talking? Because I'm sure you can tell. You got red flags, ding dings, things that go, she's not ready. He's not ready.
Yeah.
They need
So
this first. So how do you know who to take, who to say, come back in
so I've seen there's a lot of people that I wouldn't want to coach. I wouldn't want to hire me because of the fact if they're not open, I can't give them value. And if I can't give them value and lead them, if I can't lead somebody, I'm wasting their time and my time. Like God can only have me in so many places at one time. And it's real mindset. When somebody is open to, like, the title of my book, it's What's Possible in Recovery. And we could talk about need and want. One of the things I wanted to mention, it's like, do I have to be in recovery? I mean, do I have to stop using drugs, or do I get to? When people are open to the get to, they are open to the possibility, to know that there is something so greater than what they've already been experiences. Because for me, for people in recovery, and you mentioned this earlier, people that have been down a dark path, God chose us. And that's my belief, that we are called. We are called to something bigger.
Woo.
We are called to a greater discovery of life and a deeper meaning, because the key is like becoming a fulfilled person, to constantly grow and serve others. And if I can get somebody open to being in that mind space, to know what do they really want. Because if they say happiness, I got a solution for you. But if someone doesn't know what they really want, or they're not open to it because the ego or the monster in the brain only they want the next fix, somebody has to know that the next fix is not working for them.
Amen. And I want to say, y'all see it on the screen. Put some hearts on the screen. Jay, how do you feel about this? I believe, like, right now, within this bubble known as quarantine and COVID-19, worldwide pandemic, which is pandemic, I believe this is a great opportunity for people dealing with addictions, because it's not as easy to get to it. It's not as easy to get into that world that you need, where everybody's sitting around like at the dope house or wherever. Meet me at the corner, meet me in the parking lot of the Walgreens, or let's go to homeboy's apartment and party, this and the other. It's not that easy right now. And the entire world is forced to reset, to sit back and settle into the arms of what will be, or what is currently, the new normal. So what do you recommend a person who is sitting there going, I know this is a great opportunity. This is a chance. I'm already distancing myself. What can they do from a quarantined spot right now to start that process?
So I'm not going to promote necessarily one fellowship or another, but if they do a little, look, if they wanted to get high, they do a little work. So what I am going to say, discover a 12-step meeting on Zoom. Figure one way or another. There's loads of them out there, right? So there's loads of them out there. Now, I'm not, as here and under this context, I'm not going to talk about where I go, because of the fact that there's traditions that I uphold to. But there are 12-step meetings available that you can discover on Zoom. And I can promise you that if you really have any kind of a desire whatsoever, because I know about desire, and I know about desire before recovery, and I know about it now. When you have a desire to go get high, you're going to do, you'll run over your grandmother to go do it. And like for me, if you want to change, if you want something better, you got to do a little bit of work. It takes desire. It takes that burning desire. It's not too hard to go find somebody to speak to call a helpline of a 12-step program. It's there. The help is there. You want the help, your whole new way of life is going to be paved for you. Whether you don't have to hire a recovery coach. There's 12-step meetings. There's 12-step meetings all over the world. All you got to do is a little bit of work. Just a little bit of work to get some incredible results.
Amen. I'm going to tell you something. People never forget. A little bit of something will always be better than a whole lot of nothing. So don't ever say, well, I was used to doing that. That's not going to do anything. That's when you're completely wrong. And that could be the biggest door, because you know what? The doors of purpose, they don't come in pints, quarts, and gallons. It's big enough for your entire legacy to come through with you. Just all you got to do is take one step. So what about this one, Jay? I want you to, hi, Joshua T. Berglund. Welcome to the show. Thank you so much. I want you to speak to this, because another thing, Mendoza, thank you for that. God bless all of you. And yes, we need a plan to feel better every single day, now and after this sad time. Absolutely. So, Jay, the spiritual aspect for the person, because I know this is the greatest time. I call this right now in my world, in my mind, the gathering. because I believe we have all been gathered in a spot where we have to sit and be still for a minute, because that's even in the Bible. It says, be still and know that I am God. And I know that when with chaos has always been flying all around us like a meteor shower, but down in the middle is that one little thing. Remember back in the old days when you turned the TV set off and it had that dot in the middle of the screen that would disappear slowly? That's how I feel about God, that he's always going to be, when everything else is done, that's the last thing you'll be able to, it's going, I was here all along and I'm still here. Look at me. But you got to look for it. And this is a time, how do you feel about this? This is a time where if people really just go, shh, they just might hear what is greater than them, whispering truths that they've always needed to hear. You notice I didn't say wanted, but needed to hear. How do you feel about that?
I agree with you 100%. I believe everything happens for a reason. And I believe my consciousness authors my experiences. So there's, for me, like I saw the possibilities or the blessings that come out of this. Now, of course, there's people that I'm not empathetic to, people that are suffering, but in God's world, I believe everything happens for a reason.
Amen.
And there's so much that comes out of what people, I don't even want to call it a crisis. I want to just call it a challenge, because it's new, it's different. There's opportunity and blessing on the other side for everyone if they look at it. If you don't pass, and even if you pass, like I don't have any meaning or interpretation. There might be a whole different story and explanation behind that. But like, I believe everything happens for a reason.
So Jay, can people work with you or come to you? How do you feel about people knocking on your front door that say, listen, I'm not a Christian, I'm an atheist, I don't believe in God, this, any other, but you know what? I don't want this addiction to destroy or kill me.
Well, yeah. So the reality is I'm not religious. I have as you can see, I have a belief. I have a belief in God.
Good one. You're not religious or what?
Yeah.
What are you then? Spiritual?
Spiritual. Yeah. So my belief has come from Christians. It's come from Buddhists. It's come from Jewish people.
Amen.
I take anything that works, that gets me there.
The truth.
Right? Yeah.
As long as it's the truth, because the truth is the only thing in the universe that will never change, and it will never change on us.
Truth and love. It's just like truth and love. So
amen. Amen.
Yeah.
Wow. So tell us about this site. I've got it up on the screen. What can people expect if they pop over to teamfreedomcoaching.com?
Well, they're going to have a pop-up that's an empowerment program that I created for young people, because there's, as you know, like in the middle
I'll run
school,
right over and get mine then.
Yeah, so right, exactly. So it works for an adult too, but it's really a simple empowerment program that was originally designed for young people, but that's going to pop up on the screen.
So wait, when you say young people, what age group are you talking?
I'm talking about 12 and above.
Oh, okay.
So it's just an empowerment program. It was really kind of, a lot of the high schools and middle schools are having an issue with the vaping and, and kids with substance abuse, and they need something so the kids actually, so young people can discover who they are, what they want out of life, and how to make good decisions, and it's like, I believe not everybody has to necessarily go to a dark path to find out what they want and live their dream life. You've suffered. I've suffered, right? We can awaken people to be open to like making good decisions and doing the right thing. Right. So it's like that empowerment program was there. And really on my website, you're going to find out a little bit about coaching. I'm a speaker. That's my passion, is being on stage and speaking to people. And like I'm doing now, this is a stage, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, for me, my passion is using my voice to connect to others in that way. But they go on my website, they're going to find out a little bit more about coaching, my book's there. And, anyway, just send me an email. I'm here to help. Whether somebody hires me or not, you send me an email or whatever, I have an answer for you. Bottom line, it's like, I'm here to help. I don't care who you are.
Awesome.
I don't care if it's conscious parenting, if it's whatever it is, if it's growing spiritually, awakening, whatever, I'm here to help. You don't have to hire me. I'm here to help.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah. Well, I am so glad that you reached out and that you were chosen to be a part of my world, and I chose back in return, because that is how we got here. And again, everybody, this is just a small example of what is there and possible and available to each and every one of us, every single moment of every single day. Just you won't see it until you truly need it. So step inside every opportunity. And don't forget, once you're in there, look from top to bottom, bottom to top, side to side, corner to corner, corner to corner. And I guarantee you, you won't walk out empty-handed. That's a promise. Jay, I want to thank you so much for coming today and sharing your wonderful truths with us. And I want you to know that you have a turnstile invitation for Bathrobe Moments, which means you can come back anytime you need if you have something new going. I know when the roller coaster ride starts again and we're able to get back into the thick of life, back on stages and stuff, let us know where we can check you out in person. And everybody get over to the website. It's in the comments and it's also on the screen during the replay. So Jay, if you want to go in and pop it in, anything you want to say to people, go in and answer questions afterwards, that would be great too. And thank you again. Anything you want to say as a Jerry Springer type final thought?
Well, I don't know if it's a Jerry Springer final thought, but I want to say thank you. Anytime you want to have a conversation to talk about God and talk about positivity and talk about love and talk about solution, like I'm here. I'm really grateful for this experience. Truly.
Awesome.
Yep.
Awesome. Thank you again. God bless you. Keep being the blessing, because everybody, it is a fact. You can never be a blessing if you can't see a blessing. Thank you. Get out there, and everybody, please do me a favor. Stay safe and stay at home. Jay, thank you. We'll see you soon. Everybody, see you Monday morning, God willing, 8 a.m. Central. We're going to have a light worker, Dominique, and her sidekick. I think it's, I'm not even going to try that name. I'll see you Monday morning, 8 a.m. Have a wonderful weekend and be a part of the solution, not the problem. Bye, everybody. Yep. Bye-bye.